Hello and welcome back to Talkin Pitch Side. I am your host PJ, and it is just me today. I am going solo. Tony is out of town, so I will be covering the preview of the games here. Me and you and the listener, you get a just solo cast here. I don't do this very often, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, but it's fun to do, and I'm glad I still get to do this and talk to you guys about some MLS games here. In terms of news and notes this week for MLS, we honestly didn't really have a ton. The one major tidbit of news is going to come in this first preview. So I'm not going to spend too much time covering anything like that. I think the small things are the U.S. men's national team camp is about 2 weeks away at this point. So we're going to start getting some news about the team that's going to be selected, which is exciting. I think this is a weird time for the World Cup because of everything that's going on in the world outside of the soccer world, and it's making the excitement level drop a little bit. So I do think we need this camp and these playoff matches, things like that, to start building some hype up for the World Cup again. I think I generally talk to people; they're excited. It's something that I don't think we've all mentally grasped that it's happening here yet. I think that's really going to hit once this weather starts to change. We're outside more and like, oh wow, the World Cup's right on the corner, the summer's coming. So I don't think we're quite there hype level wise, and I do think this March window is going to start building a lot of that, especially based on the performance of the team. If the U.S. men's national team goes out there, plays really well, I think we could start to see people really start to rally around this team. Of course, if the opposite happens, it will be interesting to see what the feedback is at that point. But let's stay positive for now and hope things go well. But in terms of player news, there's not a ton. We talked about Weston McKennie last week re-signing at Juventus. I think that's huge for him just to have that solidity in his position at the club. He has not had that a ton while over at Juventus. We've had guys continue to score in the championship like Haji Wright, Patrick Agyemang. Haji Wright's going to be promoted to the Premier League. What's that going to look like? We had Josh Sargent make his official move over to Toronto recently, so we'll most likely see him this week in the MLS, which is exciting. Lots of small moves, nothing major going on in the U.S. men's national team circle as we wait for the news on the team that's going to be selected at the end of March. With that being said, though, let's jump into some MLS games here. We have a great slate, in my opinion. It's still early in the season, so we're still feeling a lot about these matchups, about these teams, who they will be for the rest of the season. I think it's easy to say it's too early to make assumptions about teams, which I agree with to an extent. But I think you also need to pay attention because we saw teams like the LA Galaxy last year really struggle early on in the season. And I just kept saying, oh, they're a good team. They're going to turn it around. It's going to slowly change. And that never happened. And I think that's a concern for some of these teams that get off to slow starts is you can't put yourself too much in a hole. You've got to have some results early on, especially with a lot of these newer coaches. And there's a lot of them in the MLS this season. And I think you need to rally the troops early, get some victories, get guys believing in your system. So I think this is starting to get to that point in that 3 to 7 game range that you're going to see teams really start to show their true identity. So this should be an exciting week. First game in our window, 2:30 slate. We do have NYCFC hosting Orlando. NYCFC have had a very solid start to the season. They drew the Galaxy away. They win at home against Philly, and now they play at home against an Orlando side who couldn't have started the year worse. They lose week one. You think they're going to bounce back week two against that Messi-led Miami side. They're up 2-0 at halftime, and then the barrage at halftime happens, and you lose 4-2 in a crushing home defeat. So I don't really know what to make of this Orlando side right now. You have the Griezmann news, which is the news I was referring to, that we may have a small bit of it, that he's not committed yet. And that's not coming. That's not going to fix this defense, which has been a major issue for Orlando this week and the week prior. And their young signings in the backline, the Brazilians, have not panned out so far. There's clearly learning curves that need to happen with the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, you've got to carry the load here. I think that you're going to have to outscore teams. I think you need guys like Ojeda to continue to score. I think you need Duncan McGuire to show something. It's perplexing to think of where this guy was 2 years ago to where he is now. And it's frustrating from an Orlando side, I'm sure, and to see what he's become. And there's something there. I think they can still unlock it. I just don't know when. I don't know how. And I hope for the best for them. But in this game, I'm going to have to lean New York at home. And they've clearly been the better side early on the season, despite all of their missing pieces in the front. Alonso Martinez, nowhere to be found anytime soon. Their failed DP9 signing, and they're just still scoring. They're still getting results. And you've got to give them credit for fighting early on the season. And I was a doubter. I did not think they would be very good this year. And classic NYCFC, they're probably going to sneak in the playoffs, probably upset somebody, and do what they do every single year. So, official prediction: I'm going to go NYCFC 2-1 against Orlando in that game. I think they get it done at home, and I think it's going to be a rough start to the season for Orlando. The next game in the 4:30 window, we have DC United at home versus Inter Miami. This is an interesting one. I feel bad for DC to an extent because they're getting the team of Miami that just awoke in that second half against Orlando. And I think this could be the starting point for an Inter Miami run here, especially as they start to compete in multiple competitions. We've still yet to see the best of Allende and Bertarame early this season. And I think that can come in a game like this. I fear this is going to be one of those boat race type games, despite DC United having a win early on the season. I just don't think talent wise they're even close to the level of Miami. And I think that's what it's going to come down to is you've got to outscore Miami. And right now, DC does not have the facilities to do that. And I think this one's going to end maybe in a Miami 3-1, 4-1 victory on the road, getting it done and continuing this hot form in that second half that they saw against Orlando. Going into the 7:30 window here, we have Atlanta hosting RSL. This is a game. I'm worried for Atlanta. I was a believer in Tata maybe turning this around to an extent. When I say turn around, I mean maybe make the fringe playoff team compared to what they were last year. And early on the season, it is not shaping up to be that way. I know it's early, but seeing Latte Loth still have these mental struggles in front of net is just mind blowing. It's a guy, he's the highest transfer ever in MLS history, and you aren't getting any production from him. Like that, this could go down as one of the worst signings in MLS history if he does not turn his form around. And for Atlanta, it's hard. I mean, you have Miguel Moran. His big thing was his pace and his athletic ability, and now that has gone down a little bit, you can see it's just not there for him. He's not technical enough to overcome that, in my opinion, and it's really hurting him. And I think it's really hurting this Atlanta team to have two guys with so much money on the books not be producing. This is a league. You have to hit your DPs. If you don't hit your DPs, you're not going to win. So I'm really fearful for them. RSL coming off the big win against Seattle. I don't think we'll see Diego Luna yet. I don't know that for sure, but I believe he's still out with injury. But an RSL side that looked very good against Seattle. I know they're on the road here, so I'm going to go draw. I think Atlanta gets their first point of the year. It's a home league, and I think they might be able to do something here at home in front of that fan base. I'd assume it's going to be a large fan base for the first home game of the season. And RSL is going to have to put up a fight. I just don't think Atlanta's talented enough to pull away from RSL at this point, and I think it's going to be a draw at home. So, in my opinion, would be a good point for RSL. I know that you're playing an Atlanta side that people are pretty down on, but in the first home game of the season, one of the better things you can come out with is a point on the road. Continuing in the 7:30 window, we have Charlotte at home versus Austin. This is an interesting one. We have Charlotte, who's coming off a rough loss. We have Austin, who's coming off a miraculous win at the death. Two teams that are coming off very different results. And you've got a Charlotte side playing at home in front of that fan base. You know they're going to be up and at it. That stadium's going to be jumping for pregame. And I think that they're due for a bounce back here. I think they've had a rough start to the season. I do think Charlotte gets it done in this one. I just haven't seen enough still from this Austin attack. I think Christian Ramirez is going to help that a lot in the short term, but I don't see that getting done on the road at Charlotte in that environment. I think Charlotte gets all 3 points in this one, and they start building some momentum here. The defense is what I'm concerned about, and I think Charlotte's concerned about it because you don't have Melanda filling that back line anymore. He was such an anchor for that team, and it's concerning not seeing him back there and what it looks like right now. So it's kind of an offense of Austin that hasn't looked terrific against a defense in Charlotte that hasn't looked terrific. and who's going to win that battle, in my opinion, is really going to be what it comes down to in this game. I think Charlotte do get it done. I think they win 2-1 in a tight matchup. And I think Austin's going to need a miraculous performance from like a Facunde Torres to really get the job done in this one and try and get some type of result from this game. Moving on here in the next game in the 7:30 window, we have Columbus at home versus the Chicago Fire. This one should be interesting. I think these are two teams that have had very mixed results to start the year. Columbus, of course, coming off that draw that feels like a loss on the road against Kansas City, a poor Kansas City side, and Abu Ali misses that late penalty that could have given them the win. Then you have Chicago coming off a victory. They're feeling good about themselves against a Montreal side who's not very good, so it's hard to know what you're getting out of that game. I think this should be one of the better matchups of the weekend, though. I think I'm excited to watch this game. These are two teams that I see very similar right now in the Eastern Conference in terms of talent and competition-wise. Two good coaches, it seems like. I know Rydstrom hasn't been a terrific start, but that offense is still buzzing. Like they're going to score goals. I think the problem is right now the midfield for Columbus and the lack of Darlington Nagbe and that hole in that midfield, and they really haven't filled that yet. So it'll be interesting. I know Andres Gomez is going to be playing at some point. I don't know if he'll be showcasing in this game necessarily. So I think they're hoping that he comes in and fills that void for them. So it'll be interesting to watch, and we'll see if the Jonathan Bamba gets things going for Chicago again, gets in that score sheet, and if this attack for Chicago, which we on this podcast are very high on, can get some chances, and they will. It's going to really come down to who can get more chances. I'm going to go Columbus to take all 3 points at home in this one. I mean, home league, we'll talk about it again. I think it's hard to win on the road, especially against a Columbus fan base and a Columbus attack like this, especially if they get one early. I think Columbus are going to get their first victory for Rydstrom, and I think they're going to showcase some offensive capabilities here in this game. Should be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a 3-2 game in this one. So we have Columbus 3-2. They get all 3 points at home. Continuing on in the last game in the 7:30 window, we have Philadelphia Union at home against the San Jose Earthquakes. Two teams that could be more opposite right now. We have the Union, who have not gotten a point this year. We have San Jose, who's won both their games this year. The Bruce Arena second-year jump is real. It's here. I think it should be fun to see how that goes and see if that can continue here. Philly is going to be desperate, though. I think they're going to play with desperation. They need points. They need to bounce back here. I would hope Timo Werner is starting this game for the first time for San Jose. I think that will be something to make this like a game you have to watch. I'm really interested to know how this guy performs in the MLS. I'm a Spurs fan. Couldn't be worse times as a Spurs fan. I watched Timo Werner play. I know his finishing has been a big question mark, and that's where my concern is. But you saw him create. Like, he still has that pace on the right wing, got the assist last game when he subbed on, and has performed early. And I'm hoping he keeps that up. I think it'll be exciting to watch. I think this is going to be shared points at home for Philly. I think they're not going to get a win in this one again. I think this team is just, you play with fire when you reset your team every year. And that is what Philly has done once again. They've reset the team. You've kept some of the core pieces, but it's just so many new people in that starting lineup. So many guys sold on that were such key pieces last year. It's hard to win each year doing that. And I know they've beaten the odds, but feels like every year and done it. I just think this is going to be a year it may catch up with them, especially when you get rid of guys in that defense. And that can just create a leaky opening for someone to start scoring at a high rate. And I think San Jose is going to get some goals in this one. I'm going to go 2-2. I think if there's going to be goals in this game, San Jose hasn't allowed a goal yet this year. So we'll be interesting if the defense can keep that up. I don't know if they will. So I think that would be tough for them to do that. And I'm going to go 2-2. I'm going to go shared points, but I think San Jose's good form is going to continue into this week 3. Heading into our 8:30 slate, we have Nashville at home versus Minnesota. Nashville side who just shared points in their last game. They did not have Sam Surge up top, so I think that played a major factor. You have Minnesota coming off a big home win against FC Cincinnati, which they won 1-0. I'm not going to overthink this one. I think it's easy to overreact to the Minnesota win over FCC that did not have any Vander and did not look great in that cold weather. It was about 20 degrees in that game. I think it's easy to overreact to Nashville sharing a point in which everyone thought this team was just going to be dominant. And I think Nashville is going to bounce back in a big way. I think at home in front of that fan base, you're going to see a pretty high scoring effort. FC Cincinnati did not take advantage of opportunities they had against Minnesota. It's not a Minnesota side that is similar to last year. They just do not look the same. They systematically aren't the same. And they're going to allow more chances. And they're going to more open chances, I'll say that. Because they allowed chances last year, but it was 7 guys sitting behind the ball, or 10 guys sitting behind the ball saying, shoot through us and try and get a quality chance. This year they're playing that 4-back, and there's more chances for this 3-headed monster of Espinoza, Hani Mukhtar, and Sam Surge to get goals, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think this is going to be a pretty convincing win. I think Nashville wins this one 3-1, and they get all 3 points at home. Continuing here, we have Kansas City at home versus San Diego. Kansas City, you got a point last week. That's the positive news. Not so positive news, you're hosting San Diego, who has been one of the hottest teams to start this year in CONCACAF, in MLS play. They've scored so many goals. They're just scoring goals at a ridiculous clip, and I'm excited to see if they can continue this. I'm excited to see how that goes, but I do think San Diego's going to get all 3 points on the road. I think Kansas City, it's nothing against them, the fan base at home, anything like that. They just have like 14 senior players on this roster. And it is a thin roster. It's a team that's going to allow a ton of goals again. If Jovic doesn't score 3 goals, they're not going to win most games. And I think San Diego could put up 4 to 5 goals in this game. I'm going to go 4-1 and say Jovic gets on the score sheet and Dreyer gets a couple goals because San Diego's just that good, and I think Kansas City is just that poor talent-wise, and I feel bad for them. I hope things turn around soon. I hope the new ownership invests into this team because this fan base deserves it, and it'll be interesting to watch. I just think San Diego's on a different level right now than Kansas City. Last game in the 8:30 window, we have St. Louis at home versus Seattle. St. Louis is looked okay to start the year. I don't think their fan base is going to say they've looked terrific or horrible. And you have Seattle, who's coming off the loss versus RSL. I'm going to go Seattle on the road. I just believe in this team too much, and I did this last year too, and I believed in them for a long time, and they let me down. I had them as my Supporter Shield champions, and shouldn't have done that because they don't try and win Supporter Shield. They try and win trophies. And I think it may look similar again this year, their attempt to win a trophy that's not Supporter Shield, but I do think talent-wise, they're just at a different level than St. Louis. I think St. Louis at home is going to make this one competitive. I think it's going to go 2-1 Seattle. I think the Roldans can still contribute at a high level, and we've seen that already this season. And I think they get it done in a tight one. I'm saying like a late goal. I don't think that they're just going to roll in and cruise through St. Louis. And will be interesting. I think Hartel basically just has to play hero ball for St. Louis to compete this year. And I think he's capable some nights. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it against this Seattle side. So I'm going to go Seattle 2-1 on the road. Moving into the one game at 9:30 Eastern Time, we have Colorado at home versus LA Galaxy, a game I'm actually super excited to tune into. This is a Colorado side that bounced back in a big way last week. This is an Ange disciple in Matt Wells that is going to be attack. This is a Galaxy side who wants to attack and is prone to open up chances as well. And I know that Glesnes and Hack have looked good so far. I just still think they're capable of allowing goals and allowing chances. So I think this is going to be a very back and forth game. Like I think both teams are going to have 15 shots is like the feeling I get from this one. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to go shared points because I really do believe in this Galaxy side and getting results. I think they're going to draw this game 2-2. I think it's going to be high scoring. I still want to see Paxton Erickson develop into more of like a leader on the field, and I'm really tuned into that to see how he continues to develop in that way. So I'm excited to watch that. I think he looked great last game despite not having a goal and assist. Like it's easy to be like, oh, he didn't have a good game. I think he was still the highest rated player on Colorado for the day because of his impact and the runs and the passes that he made to help create some of those chances for them. So I think it will be fun. I think this João Klaus storyline is awesome and entertaining for Galaxy, a guy who really just had not been great for St. Louis in the past 2 years. And they kind of were like, okay, yeah, we'll get rid of him. If you really want him, we'll get rid of him. And early on, has 3 goals this season. I think he's a sneaky Golden Boot competitor if he continues to get chances from Peck. I think we still need to see more from Paintsville and what he can do for the side and kind of elevate LA Galaxy's game. But if we see that version of Peck again this week, I think Galaxy can get all 3 points on the road. I just think that more of the issue is going to come from Colorado getting their chances and scoring goals as well. So I'm going to go 2-2 draw at home. Going into the late fixtures here, we have LAFC at home versus FC Dallas. LAFC's wagon right now. I really do think they're going to be the most dominant team this regular season. I think they, talent-wise, are just so complete. I think Son and Messi going to the World Cup is going to play a factor, but I do think there's more guys from Miami that are going to be leaving for the World Cup that are going to play a bigger factor than LAFC. I think Buanga not going to the World Cup and getting that rest is going to be huge for that team because second best player, arguably best player at times for LAFC, he's going to be rested, ready to go for the second half to make a supportive shield push. And I really do think LAFC, talent-wise, is just there. This team from front to back is just so good. Son and Buanga continue just to dominate, and the underlying numbers for the way they produce on a game-to-game basis are some of the highest we've ever seen in MLS history. I mean, Messi's there. He's going to be there as well. But Son and Buanga have just been that elite as a duo, and it's exciting to watch. I think they're going to be really dominant. I feel bad for Dallas because I had Dallas in my top 10 rankings for the MLS going into week 3. I just think they're up at it on the road against LAFC. I don't think they're going to be able to get any points from this one. I think LAFC win this one 2-1, 3-1, and Peter Musa gets on the score sheet and is able to do something, but I think it's more so his defense that's going to let him down in this one. So I'm going to go 3-1 LA Galaxy or LAFC at home. Last game in the Saturday window here, we have Portland Timbers at home versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. This is an exciting game. Portland coming off a disappointing game last. Vancouver starting the year off 2-0. They get all 3 points in a more dominant effort than we saw in week 1. So that offense is clicking a little bit better. Portland is a very good home team. They are very different home and away. At home, they're very good. They're dominant at times, and they're going to have a good test here. I think this is a great late night watch. I think out of those 2 late night games, you're going to say, hey, this is probably the more competitive one. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Vancouver plays on the road here. I think they're one of the 3 teams in the West that are going to be pushing for that number 1 seed. I think a lot of people had them lower than I think we all would have thought at the end of last year because of their offseason and the lack of additions for this team. But they're proven they're still a really good team. The way they've developed Sebastian Berhalter, Tristan Blackman, Thomas Muller starting off this year well. And you haven't even seen a ton for Brian White yet. He had a goal last game, but I think you still can get another level from him. And you still got Sabi there. I just think they still have guys to produce at a very high level and be a very good regular season team. And then they've also now shown they have what it takes to go through the MLS playoffs and make a championship run. They went through the best of the best over there. So got to give them credit. I think Vancouver is going to get a shared point in this one on the road. I think Portland is going to need a lot from Anthony. I think they're going to need a lot from. See, I don't know who's going to be playing striker every game for them. I think that's my main concern. I think Kevin Kelsey has actually looked really good when he's played this year, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he gets a start in this one. And I think Portland in front of that home fan base is going to do enough to get a point. I mean, they play good at home. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think it's a lower scoring, and they can get shared points in the late night game. 2 games left here on Sunday. We have a 4:30 and a Sunday night soccer game. New York Red Bulls at home against Montreal. Red Bulls are coming off one of the more exciting starts of the year. I mean, these young guys, Julian Hall, are performing at such a high level with Forsberg. It's so impressive. I don't think it's going to last forever. It's going to last against Montreal, though. I love you, Montreal fans. I really want this team to change, and I know you want the same thing. but right now it's not. And I think Red Bull's getting them at home in this home stretch early in the season is key for some momentum building for Michael Bradley. I think the job he's doing right now is terrific. It's probably the best storyline coaching wise in the MLS so far. Everyone's going to be tuned into this game. And I think it's going to be another game you might see Julian Hall get another goal. And his U.S. men's national team buzz is going to start growing. It's fun to watch. I love seeing the MLS be a developmental league. And I think the way Michael Bradley's playing these young guys, you can really thrive as an MLS team by playing young guys, developing them, and selling them on. And I know we all want to think about the incomings, but if you can be a team that can thrive in that realm of selling players on, I think you can be a super successful team. And I think Red Bulls is starting to adapt that a little bit with Michael Bradley. I think that's the mindset. And I'm excited to see this team. I'm excited to keep tabs on it because I think Michael Bradley is one of my favorite U.S. men's national team players ever. So it's fun to see him in a coaching role. And it will be super interesting to see if they can continue this run. I think they will. Montreal is really poor. The defense is rough. The offense might be worse. And I think they just might be in the lowest point total in MLS history this season. I think that's a really bold claim, and I hate saying that out loud. I just don't see much from this team, and it's concerning. You're going to have to get heroic performances from Tani and players like that to even get points this season. And I think Red Bulls, you just can't pick against this form right now. I'm going to go 3-1. I think Forsberg gets on the score sheet. I do still want to see how Choupo-Moting is going to fit into this at all. I think it's hard to play him over Julian Hall right now. The kid's scoring, and I think Michael Bradley believes in him. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic shapes out as the year goes on. Last game in our window here, we have FC Cincinnati at home versus Toronto. I will be there here in Cincinnati for Sunday Night Soccer. I'm interested to see how this Cincinnati side comes out. I think we'll have Evander back. It'll be interesting to see if he's actually starting. I'm glad that we avoided that scare that exists. Toronto's coming off a pretty rough stretch here. They've not started the year well, and I think it's another rough test to have to go to FC Cincinnati early in the season. So I'm interested to see how that all works out. I think FC Cincinnati get it done. I think especially if Evander plays in some capacity, they're going to be able to do enough offensively. Toronto defense, I thought, really upgraded in the offseason and has not showcased that. I think Walker Zimmerman has not looked great so far, and you need him to be like good Walker Zimmerman to help this team survive. I think I'm excited that I'm going to see Josh Sargent make his debut, hopefully, for Toronto on the road here. It'll be interesting to see if he starts this game, and should be an interesting one. I think FC Cincinnati fear you got to have is what if Josh Sargent comes and he's the Norwich striker in his prime over there, and he's scoring goals, and he's going to be flying past the slower-footed defenders that are some of the FC Cincinnati defenders. I think Miles Robinson's going to have to do a good job of man marking Josh Sargent in this one, and I think this is going to be a great storyline if we get Sunday Night Soccer with Josh Sargent going against FC Cincinnati, a team that a lot of people believe in and still finishing that top 3 in the East this upcoming season. So big game for both teams that need a result. FC Cincinnati coming off a loss, Toronto coming off a loss. They both need this, and I think you're going to see a little bit of desperation in their play to get a victory in this one, and FC Cincinnati have been a very good home team. So it's going to be a tough road ahead for Toronto to try and get some points out of this one. Thank you for listening to my little quick preview here. It's going to be a shorter episode. Before we go, though, I do want to hear from our friend Stin. He is going to still give you Stin's picks, and I'll react here in just a second.
We start in the Big Apple, where NYCFC begins a stretch of 9 of their next 11 matches at home. I like City Football Group's B team to continue their dominance over Orlando. NYCFC 2, Orlando 1. Next, we're off to a city that I've had enough of this week, Columbus, Ohio. However, the sickos won't be able to get enough of this matchup because it's a striker's paradise. Give me goals. Columbus 3, Chicago 2. Talking Heads couldn't have predicted a more polar opposite start for these two sides. I've got the Quakes to shock the Union and put them in trouble. Philly 1, San Jose 2. Finishing off Saturday with a banger, and this is the Cascadia Cup. Darren Maddox is looking down on this game with a smile on his face. Portland 1, Vancouver 3. Lastly, we've got Sunday Night Soccer for our very own Nick Haglund Bowl. Rat Snoozin and the lads should be able to take care of business on the big stage. Cincy 3, Toronto 0.
Okay, thank you, Stin, for the entertaining, as always, performance going through Stin's picks. We differed on a couple of projections here. He had Cincinnati. Well, I guess I never made my Cincinnati prediction. Cincinnati's going to win this one. I always pick for them. But he had Cincinnati winning 3-0, which was shocking. He also had San Jose beating Philly on the road, which I did not have. And he also had Vancouver beating Portland on the road, which I did not have as well. So credit to Stin. He's going bold this week. He's going non-home league truther this week. And I appreciate the bold predictions from Stin in this one. But with that being said, this was a shorter episode without Tony. It's tough for me to sit here and not have someone to bounce things off of in a long form. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to my quick predictions here. I think we are excited to keep covering the MLS. Please cover or go over to our YouTube. We have a ton of content going on there. This will be on YouTube. We've already been shown a ton of love over there. So please go check it out. Like, subscribe, everything under the sun to help support us and help us grow this thing. We love covering soccer in the United States. We love covering the MLS. So please like that button, subscribe, and keep in touch for some more videos coming soon. So with that being said, we will see you guys on Tuesday reacting to all the results from this MLS weekend.